Welcome back to the Combo Couch, everyone. This is Pasta Jar Dula here. And I'm Fiorella.
Why are you smirking? You didn't like the old school, let's get into it, go hardcore, pasta be a goofy son of a bitch introduction?
No, I was something's going on with sharing um, the links on Twitter. I guess something Elon did is screwing it or whatever. I don't know.
Elon is at it again. By the way, for some of those people like, a dingo ate me baby, going, hi, Rock Fam. Yes, we are going free today on the Rock Fam. We haven't done that in a while, so we figured we'd give you guys a treat and go over there. And besides, some of you guys can leave some super rays as well. And we took away that feature when we went premium. We are making a few bucks more on our subscriptions, and all of you people, the 114 people, I believe it is, who are subscribing to the Combo Couch Rockfin, we do appreciate that, and we love you for that. And if you can afford to do so, please, it is $14.99. Jump on over there and subscribe. But there's always links down below where you can get to our Patreon. You can you can send money to us directly if you need be. All that good stuff to help independent media going, because we go and we are fueled by you, aka the people, fam.
Fam, I don't know if that was necessary.
I had a lot of coffee today, but I'm feeling good, and it is beautiful outside here. Let me show you. Look at that. Boom. Beautifulness, fam. Beautifulness. I got the purple light like you. Well, it just went blue right when I opened my mouth. But we have a good show for you today, fam. I was a little bit down yesterday because, man, in Boca Raton, were they bitching and were they complaining about Trump getting indicted for sleeping or hanging out or getting hush money from Stormy Daniels. I'm surprised they didn't hit up the Russian collusion. Oh, for Truth Media Social, he took somebody money from some oligarch that's close to Putin. But no, they went with the Stormy Daniels thing, fam. Your thoughts, and guys, thank you. Do us all the favor. Share all the links out there to help out the show. But fam, break down the master distraction that is this whole crap with Donald Trump.
So this is totally a distraction. We talked about it from the start. So there was a New York Times breaking news: a grand jury votes to indict Donald Trump in hush money case, meaning he paid money to his his lover, essentially. Which to me, this is, I mean, the fact that we are discussing this is actually, to me, like insane, because we have real problems going on in the world right now. Legit. I mean, we have the potential of nuclear war. We have escalations happening with NATO escalating things, trying to shift things to Poland. I don't think we've talked enough about Poland, and where they're looking to shift things from Ukraine to Poland, because Ukraine is basically a lost cause right now. That's why you haven't heard so much about Ukraine as much, because it's pretty much a done deal, guys. It really is. And so we have that going on. We have the China situation. We have the world saying, hey, let's all be friends and cooperate. On the Eastern Bloc, Saudi Arabia, Syria, China. You have Latin America doing their thing. Of course, you have the regular agenda folks that are trying to push a lot of this stuff, a lot of this war, and the exploration by what's his name, Zuckerberg, giving a visual cortex to these robots, to these artificial intelligence, to these machines. So we have all this going on, and then we have this. Like, when you look at the news in the United States, it just seems so. It seems like reality TV, like something I would watch to entertain myself. So this has been talked about for a while. Trump had said he was going to get arrested last Tuesday, and he never got arrested. And people were like, "What's going on?" Well, they voted. This grand jury voted to arrest him. And the thing is, we're going to talk about what Nancy Pelosi said, because it's the most hilarious thing, I think, out of this whole thing, what she said. But the reality is, guys, this is a distraction because one, um, if Donald Trump is a criminal, and if you're going to try him for this, it really sets a precedent because nobody else has been tried for this to happen with others. And obviously, this to me, this is what it looks like from the outside. It looks like they're trying to really gear up to set people against each other, especially since we're coming into 2024. And there's like a certain seismic like civil war that it seems like they're pushing. I'm not trying to be conspiratorial. I believe that is reality. I think that's what they're pushing. They're pushing this war between Democrats and Republicans, the left and the right. And um, what CNN has said, fam. If you can just scroll down, just so everybody
And
knows.
just make sure that
Yeah,
everybody knows they want a war between the Democrats and Republicans so I can start a war with China.
China. Exactly. So
Donald Trump
I'm
has
just
been indicted for following an investigation into hush money payment scheme. Here's what we know. Here's what we know. Look at the face. China.
blah blah blah. Okay,
You want to
so
listen
former
to this
President
message
Donald
after
Trump,
being indicted?
huh?
You want me to play this or no?
No, 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 no.
All
I
right.
don't want to play CNN. I was just gonna say I'll read a little bit of the first couple paragraphs. So Donald Trump's indictment by a New York grand jury has thrust. Fam, can you make it bigger? Yeah, there we go. Has thrust the nation into uncharted political, legal, and historical waters and raised a slew of questions about how the criminal case will unfold. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office has been investigating Trump in connection with his alleged role in a hush money payment scheme and cover up involving adult film star Stormy Daniels that dates to the 2016 presidential election. Though the indictment, which has been filed under seal, has yet to be unveiled, Trump and his allies have already torn into Bragg and the grand jury's decision, blasting it as political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. So, fam, I want to ask you something. On the surface, does it seem like election interference to you?
Wow, wasn't expecting that question, Fiorella. I never thought I would equate it to election interference. In fact, I think me and Nico made statements about the election, like which we'll get to. But I don't know if it's election interference. It seems like election persuading. I don't know. That's a good question, but
Well, so let me
I
just
mean,
put
it's election interference, by the way, of eliminating somebody off the ballot by
yeah. So
because he can still run with
Christina,
this. He's not going to stop him from running for president. So it's not.
it it could paint. You could view it as painting him in a certain way, blah blah blah. But it's dumb because the reality is that people who support Trump are going to support him no matter what he does,
This is
and
going to make
that's the
more
truth.
people support him. That's
Yeah,
what it has done. It's like this has riled up,
yeah,
all the people here in Boca Raton. It's riled them up. It's riled the base up. It's to get energy. It's to distract you from what's going on. It's a weapon of mass
yeah.
distraction. But it's idolizing him. It's
Hmm.
villainizing him. He's victimizing him. Excuse me.
Hmm.
It's victimizing him. So now forget about it. They're pulling out all the stops. These are the reasons more than anything. It makes me believe that it's all Kabuki theater that we're witnessing.
Yeah, I think it's theatrical. So let's go back to the CNN article because this is what they claim. They claim that he's facing 30 counts related, more than 30 counts to business fraud in this indictment. And he's expected to be arraigned in this Manhattan criminal court next Tuesday at 2:15 p.m. Eastern time. And so this relates to a $130,000 payment made by Trump, then personal attorney
I
Michael
keep
Cohen
telling.
to Daniels in October 2016. Okay, so we know all this. So I can't even take this seriously because they're trying to tie this to the election back in 2016. They're trying to say that Trump is was involved in these schemes. They're trying to say all these things, but if you're actually going to go after a president for something so ridiculous, because it involves a porn star, this is why it's so ridiculous to me, because we're talking about a porn star, we're talking about hush money, it looks like a really bad, to me, a really bad like mob movie, fam,
Yeah.
without any Italians in
Yeah.
it, and just like it's just a really bad movie script. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. Why are they doing this now? We always have to look at the counter narrative to the narrative, but then also there's also the counter narrative to the counter narrative. And so looking at this from that angle, it does seem to me like this is being people are being played. This absolutely does make Trump a victim in the eyes of his supporters, in the eyes of even people who aren't his supporters. I'm not his supporter, and I think this is absolutely stupid that they're going after him for this. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. That there's no basis to go after him for any of this stuff. And if you're going to go after him for this petty stuff, how about you go after Joe Biden for the various accusations he had? How about you go after Barack Obama for his war crimes, George Bush? We could go down the list, Hillary Clinton. I mean, this is an ongoing thing. War criminals run free. You have the symbolic bullshit that's being pinned on Trump, but it's not reality. So all that does is make Trump look like a victim. It makes him look like an outsider. It makes him look like this guy that's going to come in and go after the establishment. And meanwhile, the liberals are creaming their pants. They're creaming their pants. They're so excited because they're like, oh my God, Trump, haha, finally, haha, I'm so excited. Finally, that criminal gets to blah, blah, blah. And it's literally 2023. Joe Biden is president. We're on the brink of war. We have like so many issues in the United States. Homelessness is off the roof. I mean, it's just done. We have inflation. We have the side effects of badly handled COVID bullshit. And all on top of all of that, you still want to focus on bad guy, evil Trump. And so all this does to me, if we lived in a fair election system, all this does to me is say Republicans are totally taking the election in 2024. Republicans are going to sweep, and this is all that whole thing. That's what it would do to even people from outside the United States. They're looking at this, they're like, wow, Trump, at least, why are they going after Trump, right? They must be going after Trump for a reason, because they must be going after Trump because he's an outsider. Why are they doing this right before an election? No, I'm telling you, that's what people think. That's what people think. People
I know.
who aren't familiar with our politics and what's actually going on. So what do you think is actually going on, and why do you think this is happening now? Because, by the way, this has been on every major media outlet nonstop.
It won't stop
for a while now.
It won't stop. They will not stop. Go ahead, fam.
No, I'm asking you, what do you think is actually going on? Because I said this has been nonstop in all of mainstream media. And when mainstream media focuses on something, it's not because it's necessarily the most important thing. 9 times out of 10, it's because it's a distraction made to promote a certain agenda. Because we know that mainstream media is literally propaganda, and that's all they are at this point. So why exactly? And this is both from the right-wing media, right? That's saying, wow, Trump's this victim. Look at him. He's taking on the deep state. This is why they're trying to take him down, because Trump is an outsider, and he's going to come in and he's going to make America great again. I don't know if you can find his statement, fam, but it'd be great if you could find his statement, because he did this whole statement where he came out and said all these things. And to a lot of people, his statement sounds good. And I'm saying this because people don't understand like the dynamic of our politics in the United States. Like even people here in Russia, like I've said this many times, like being here as an American, it's kind of interesting navigating these waters, because to a lot of Russians right now, the Republican Party seems like less anti-war or more anti-war, more okay. They're more okay with their views on social issues, because here they're not really jumping on, the whole LGBTQ. What they say is propaganda. What they say is so much focus on it. And they're more conservative in certain aspects. So they're like looking at, they're looking at the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and they're like, oh wow, like, well, Trump seems like at least a better guy than Joe Biden, and at least he seems like he has some sort of like plan and that he's coherent. And this is like the perspective. He must be an outsider, but the reality is, guys, he's not. And Trump is actually, to me, in my opinion, he is a major player in this whole thing. And we can go back as to what he did in a minute, but I just wanted to ask you, fam, what do you think this is really all about?
I always believe this is nothing more than Kabuki Theater. This is the great distraction. It's a weapon of mass distraction. It's like we're not talking about the things that are important, and it's almost like what I kind of compared what I was talking about, like sanctions in Cuba. Like I'm saying, once again, the Cuban people are strong and they're resistant and they're great, but there's only so much longer you can just take these things when you punish people, and I think this has a lot to do with the same way where this is working, where it's going to, like we said, victimize Trump. It's going to lift him up and it's going to fire up his base while we're not talking about the things that are important, while we're not talking about this Restrict Act that's kind of been they're trying to brush it underneath the rug. All this stuff happens when it seems like there's some really crazy things that we need to be concentrating on and talking about. I mean, my friend down over here, my friend Tony, said to me the other day, he says, it's just amazing to me that these people are walking around like it's just gonna blow on over, because Americans are I don't want to say lazy, but they're complacent and they think that their dollar's gonna be good, that everything's gonna be fine, and they're gonna go on with their things. Not even to mention the fact that the majority of people don't pay attention to any of this stuff and they don't give a damn. The ones who do pay attention to this stuff are being distracted by this, and it is just soaking up the airwaves. So I've always kind of leaned into the fact that I thought that Trump was a Trojan horse, of sorts. He would be the one, I would say, though, I can say they have done a good job where he has been the one I think that you would have to question the most as being an outsider. Like, I thought for Tulsi was one for a while. Now I'm not thinking that way at all. Trump is the one that you still kind of question, is this dude an outsider? Do they really hate him? You know what I'm saying? Because they do play up the theatrics, but I'm not sold on it. I'm not sold on it whatsoever. And even if he is, then that's still just like, if Trump is a real outsider and he's a real person doing this stuff, he's still probably way off the level of a candidate that we actually deserve as a person. You know what I'm saying? Compared to what Trump is. I mean, what has he done? What they treat this guy like he's the best thing since sliced bread. He's not. So, I mean, they're on so many different levels and so many different avenues, and just questioning the whole thing, because I guess we never know for sure. I would kind of side with you and think that he is just part of this whole Kabuki theater. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think Trump is an outsider. I think Trump's an outsider in terms of like status quo, usual politician status. That he wasn't a politician. He came as a businessman. He came into this. He's been a reality TV star. He's been in films. He's been in movies. He's been in Hollywood. But why is he not really an outsider? You take 2 seconds to look at his business. He's in the real estate. He's a billionaire. He's in touch with his family, is in touch with some of the most important families. He was best friends with the Clintons for years. His son is married to like his son and daughter are married to like important political and celebrity type of people, and these are all part of the same wealth elite circle. So to be an outsider, like, you can be an outsider in terms of the political, like, not like the usual like Bush family dynasty, or the Obamas or the Clintons, but that doesn't mean you're actually an outsider in terms of the elite of the wealth of the elite and such. And so I think that people confuse that and thought, okay, well, he's an outsider, because he's definitely not. I mean, he's definitely still he killed Soleimani. He also launched the coup in Venezuela. He backed several coups in Latin America, the attempted coup in Nicaragua, the one in Bolivia that actually followed through. And he was okay with stealing Syria's oil the only reason, and he actually boosted up, but the only reason he was more honest about that is because he was like, yeah, we're going to take Syria's oil instead of saying we're going to bring democracy to Syria. He was very blunt and upfront about it. And I don't think the establishment really liked that. He definitely continued the war in Afghanistan all, up until the very last minute. And he also expanded the war on Yemen. There's a plethora of things. The relationship with Russia was also not necessarily amazing either. And of course, there's the anti-China stance, where if you want a world of multipolarity where you think Russia and China are opposing this, well, how is Trump's anti-China stance going to go with that? So that's just one of the bigger ones. And of course, you can't forget Operation Warp Speed, and filling his cabinet and the entirety of the White House with some of the most nefarious State Department hacks and war criminals. So is Trump an outsider? Really, no. And I don't think anything's changed since the first time he ran. But I do think these sort of theatrical ploys, as you mentioned, I think they do get people distracted, especially the people on the right who are the ones actually more than the left questioning the status quo, questioning the narratives. It gets them sucked into this whole thing. Like, and it's the same way, fam, that it gets like like Bernie, like where it was like, oh, well, Bernie's the anti-establishment guy. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. Well, that sucks you in. And we know this. And the same way it's doing that to the right, where this is the leader. He's going to make a difference. He's going to take these people down. But guys, he had a chance to do it and he didn't do it. Oh, but he couldn't do it. His hands were tied. His hands were tied.
He had a chance to pardon Snowden. He had a chance to pardon Assange. He didn't do it. He also ushered in Operation Warp Speed. That would push the jab, and he's still bragging about it. He hasn't denounced it. He's tiptoed around it, and he also signed the CARES Act. The CARES Act was the mechanism in which all these people made tons of money. It's how the money was fed to them by thrusting on these COVID protocols, right? And that Donald Trump signed that, and he also printed so much money that he devalued our currency, and he led to the inflation, what's going on, and he's getting away with that. There's just so many things, one thing after the other. He is awful on Latin America, by the way. A week out before his presidency was set to end, he's the one who's thrusted these sanctions on Cuba, not the other guy. So there's so many things that the guy does, because he said he wasn't going to be a part of it. He was going to get us out of wars. He was going to stop meddling around, all that bullshit. He didn't get us out of Afghanistan. Okay? He was there for 4 years. He didn't get us out of Afghanistan. He didn't try. It wasn't a big thing. Oh, his hands are tied. It's like Fam just said. No, it's BS in my mind. It's just like this guy can get away with so many things and nobody will hold him accountable. They'll just kind of brush it over and say, well, it's not his fault. And he looks like the complete outsider. And he blamed China. It was China's fault. It was China's fault, the COVID. So,
yeah.
And
I think, Fam,
with Matt Gaetz, go ahead, Fam. Sorry.
No, we're going to go over some of the stuff, and you
have
a speech there. Sure. But real quick, I just want to say it's so much harder for people to see the former, like, to really see him for who he is right now, because Biden is president. And so people, just like it is with Trump is president, it's the other side just refuses to see the reality. So this is a statement by Donald J. Trump, the 45th president of the United States of America. Can you please read it? Because
this is the political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. From the time I came down the global golden escalator at Trump Tower, and even before I was sworn in as your president of the United States, the radical left Democrats, the enemy of the hardworking man and woman of this country, have been engaged in a witch hunt to destroy the Make America Great Again movement. You remember it just like I do. Russia, 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 the Mueller hoax, Ukraine, 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 impeachment hoax 1, impeachment hoax 2, the illegal and unconstitutional Mar-a-Lago raid, and now this. The Democrats have lied, cheated, and stolen in their obsession with trying to get Trump, but now they've done the unthinkable, indicting a completely innocent person in an act of blatant election interference. Never before in our nation's history has this been done. The Democrats have cheated countless times and over the decades, including spying on my campaign, but weaponizing our justice system to punish a political opponent who just so happens to be a president of the United States and by far the leading Republican candidate for president, has never happened before, ever. Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, who is handpicked and funded by you know who, George Soros, is in disgrace. Rather than stopping the unprecedented crime wave taking over New York City, he's doing Joe Biden's dirty work, ignoring murderers and burglars and assaults he should be focused on. This is how Bragg spends his time. I believe this witch hunt will backfire massively on Joe Biden. The American people realize exactly what the radical left Democrats are doing. Everyone can see it. So our movement and our party, united and strong, will defeat Alvin Bragg, and then we will defeat Joe Biden. And we're going to throw every last one of these crooked Democrats out of office so we can, you know what, make America great again. Thank you. Oh, by the way, China.
Great. So when you hear that,
how'd I do?
Fam, huh?
I didn't do good? How'd I do?
No, that was fine, fam.
Cool.
That was good. You're not Eric Jackman, but you know.
I know. No, Eric and Mike Jackman are amazing. So,
but so this is my whole stance on this, right? Like it's ridiculous. I mean, it's just so hollow, right? Because it's just the same thing what we're talking about when they say we're spreading democracy, we're spreading justice. Look, we're getting justice for the American people. Donald Trump's indictment does absolutely nothing for the average American at all whatsoever. Literally, it does not better your life. It doesn't make things easier. It doesn't pay your rent. It doesn't stop the endless billions of dollars going to Ukraine. It doesn't stop war. It doesn't do any of this. It's not, and then we have, of course, like I said, Julian Assange. We have all these, we have political prisoners. We have activists. We have then a bunch of war criminals that are just living their lives like nothing, getting medals and get to die as heroes. Right. And so it's really disgusting to me how people can just be like, yeah, but Donald Trump deserves. I don't care how you feel about Donald Trump. That's irrelevant to me. Is this something that is worthy to pursue? No, absolutely not. And this is obviously going to get a rise out of the people on the right. It's obviously getting a rise out of the people in the liberal contingent. And meanwhile, actual issues that need to be discussed are not being discussed. Donald Trump is not, if he wins in 2024, he's not going to save the country. He's not going to get rid of all these lying Democrats. Because if you look at what he says, he's not lying about what the Democrats are. He's not lying, except calling, like, they're not left. They're neoliberals. They're much closer to Republicans in policy
when it comes to their foreign policy. They've gone completely neoconservative, and it's just disgusting. I put something up the other day, Jamal Bauman going out there and screaming, but Jamal Bauman has been for every single military piece of aid going to Ukraine. That's okay. Killing.
He's an APAC,
he kisses Hakeem Jeffries' ass. And beside the point, the thing that I didn't point out, and that we should point out after reading his statement, is the fact that he is furthering the divide. He's about right and left. That's what Donald Trump is doing more than anything. Yeah. And he's not holding his Republican counterparts accountable for all their sins and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? That election that we had a lot to do with the Republicans. And he's not mentioning that. He's not mentioning the fact that the Republicans and Democrats go along with so many different things. They go together with foreign policy, that the Republicans went to Kiev. They would have never had this war in Ukraine if it wasn't for Lindsey Graham and friggin' John McCain. And what does he do? He goes to South Carolina and he campaigns with Lindsey Graham. Like, the establishment is already okay now. Oh, just so it's a Democrat, but the Republican establishment is okay? That's how you know he's not genuine. He's there to divide. Fam, you have a good tweet here. And I don't want to spend any more time on this shit because it's so fucked up. I hate it.
Well, I basically just read it, right? I said the U.S. is a country where a billionaire ex-president is indicted over allegedly paying off his lover, but war criminals walk free, receive Nobel Prizes, and die as heroes. quite fitting of the symbolic nothings from the empire of lies, every bit is hollow as your democracy. So I 100% think this is bullshit. What, not because I want to defend Trump, because I know some idiot is going to be, oh my God, Fearless defending Trump. And at this point, I don't give a crap if you think I'm defending Trump. I think this is stupid for what they're putting on him. I think it's dumb. I think it sets a bad precedent. I also think it's theater. I think this is all just being used for the upcoming elections. I think he's going to be fine. People worry. I think he's going to be fine. Don't worry, he'll be fine. And I do think this is just part, as Pasta said, to divide us, right?
And then you're going to tell me for 1 second, fam, that this whole and it's getting tired. It's getting really exhausting hearing this fucking argument. Well, why are you protecting Trump? Why don't you go after the Republicans? You go after the Democrats. I know who the fucking Republicans are. I was never a Republican. I was a Democrat at one point because that's who told me that we were going to make these changes and move forward in a positive way. I'm holding my side or my old side or whatever the hell you want to call it accountable. You have a whole mainstream media network designed to just go after Donald Trump on a regular basis, and they go after him stupid things. And when he's deserved to go after, we go after him. We don't, balls and strikes, ladies and gentlemen, balls and strikes. Nico made a tweet similar to this. So with the indictment of Trump, fam, do we automatically get election reform? Because the last I heard was that our election system is still the same. So how's he going to win by a landslide? And I'll let you in a little secret, ladies and gentlemen. He wanted a landslide last time. Now you go figure it out. Oh, by the way, the Department of Homeland Security says that was the safe, most effective, fairest election we ever had of all times in the history of elections.
Amen. Sure, Jan. It was the most effective and most fairest election of them all. That's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, if you're not going to hold your guy accountable, if you're not going to try to change the system or talk about the system, then what's the point? So because we're talking about Donald Trump being a possible prisoner of political ploy, I wanted to just highlight Misty and this event. And because we went to this event before and we're not going to be there this time. So I just do want to support it. It will be 4 years in Belmarsh for Julian. He's not doing well. Mentally and physically, they're killing him slowly. So so there it is. If you can just scroll down, it's going to be on Tuesday, April 11th from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern in Washington, D.C., in front of the Department of Justice on 10th and Pennsylvania Avenue. Go if you are in the area, and if you can go, if you're in the nearby tri-state area or whatever near where you can get to there, you should go, because it's really nice to yell at the Department of Justice. And this time, instead of it being on a Saturday when nobody's there, it's going to be on a weekday when these people are there and they're at work, and they're going to hear a lot of these people, right? And also right now, especially more than ever, with what's happening with Ukraine, with what's happening with Russia, China, and everything that we're seeing right now, I think it's important to really highlight things like this. And this is why I put it in this section, fam, because Donald Trump did not pardon Julian Assange.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to highlight Julian in all of this. And I'm going to highlight him again at the end because of the section on the journalists. So, but the last thing, fam, I wanted to mention, and I think everybody can have a huge laugh at this woman. She was the Speaker of the House for how long? She was one of the most important politicians in our history, like in our modern times, right? She was at the helm of so many things. And this is how dumb she is. This is how absolutely dumb she is. This is what she said. She said she's so dumb that Twitter had to correct her. The grand jury has acted upon the facts and the law. No one is above the law, and everyone has a right to a trial to prove innocence. Hopefully, the former president will peacefully respect the system which grants him that right. Fam, what is wrong with her statement?
I can tell you what I said about her statement, and you can correct it. Look what I said.
Well, that sums it up. Um, I don't know if you, I know education is bad, but what I do know is that when I was in elementary school, one of the main things you learn about the United States government and the Constitution and how it works is that you are innocent until proven
Proven
guilty.
guilty.
So this moron, she's saying he's guilty and he's got to prove his innocence.
Yes,
And
yes.
so, of course, everybody's just mocking her like left and right. Of course, Republicans are just like having a field day with this. And fam, if you can put it back up to the point where Twitter had to mark her as like information, added context, readers might want to know uh like that Miss Pelosi mistakenly says that Trump can prove his innocence at trial. Law in the U.S. assumes the innocence of a defendant, and the prosecution must prove guilt for a conviction. So there you go.
I mean, listen, everybody knows that, but that's who you know, that's who you are in society. And
Yeah, of
you know,
course.
if they want you to, if they make you guilty in the court of public opinion because they control the media and everything like that, then you have to come out and prove your innocence. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that might not be that way in the court of law, but it's who's controlling the courts.
But so in a way, Pelosi's being honest, right?
She's
Because
being
really, that's how
extremely
it is.
honest. She's being
Yeah.
extremely honest.
Thank
But
you,
I mean,
Nance.
it is upside down. So
Yeah, no, yeah, and I agree with you 100% to that point, Pasta. Like the that's what is on the paper, right? That's what we're taught in government class. That's what the Constitution says. You're innocent until proven guilty. Is that really how it works out for poor people, for a lot of minorities, especially poor people in general? But like there is a discrepancy for who you know, who like if you're a celebrity, if you're a politician, does the law apply the same way to you as it does to the average Joe American? No, it doesn't. And that's the reality. Is Trump going to be okay? Yeah, Trump's going to be fine. He's good. And it's just funny that she really let the cat out of the bag with that one.
well, it's kind of cool that she's finally got in trouble for speaking the truth the way Donald Trump gets in trouble for speaking the truth. You know what I'm saying? Like that. We always just said Donald Trump got in trouble not for telling so many lies, but for speaking the truth is when he got in trouble. But let's get into this next section because I had enough of this whole distraction kind of thing. And I know, fam, I'm sorry. It really, to tell you the truth, I got one of those moods last night. I was like, I was on Twitter like at 10:30 at night here, and I'm like, that's it. And I stopped after hearing all the bullshit, you know, and even our dude who was on the show last week, we had an amazing show with Gavin Mario Wax, but his love for Donald Trump just drives me crazy sometimes, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, he went on Bannon and, you know, my friend Laura Loomer, and I'm all like, oh, they're, you know, talking about, you know, this Trump stuff. And I'm like, guys, I love you guys. I really do. You know, I mean, these guys are new friends or acquaintances, whatever you want to call them. I don't know them for a long time. I think they're pretty cool. I don't agree with everything they say. I don't like everything they say. But this stuff just kind of depressed me too as well, because then you saw the shit libs, and we played last week with freaking what's his name, the dumbass actor who was like, I can't wait for this. You ran out of favors, this Michael Rappaport, and it's just like I had one of those moods yesterday. I just threw down the computer and I said, sit, and I got out of the freaking house for a couple hours. And then when I went to the Irish bar, they were talking about the shit. I'm like, guys, I can't escape this. You know, I walked through the freaking our little thing down there, the little whatever you call it, little clubhouse thing, and on the TV, big, they're all huddled around the big TV, listening to the story. Can you believe he got indicted? It's like I couldn't go anywhere and escape this shit. Like this is taking over the goddamn media, and I just had one of those days. I'm like, what the? I need to get the hell out of this goddamn country. I need to get the hell out of this country sometime. We're supposed to be the most powerful, greatest, awesome country in the world, and assholes want to go, this is the greatest country that ever existed, the countries. I'm like, people I even respect saying that shit, like, just shut up already. This is sad. This is sad that we're talking about this. This is the lowest of the fucking low right now for me.
So I have a Russian friend, and me and her were discussing, like, because she lived in LA for a while, and she was saying how, like, I asked her, like, would you ever go back to like California? Would you ever go back to the United States? First of all, she does not like California right now with everything that's going on. So there's that. But she also said, Americans are really spoiled because we have, like, in the United States, we have so much land and like so much like of everything is so much bigger. We have like all these things that distract us. And like even if you go to like countries like China or Japan, people adapt to living like more minimalist. And in the United States, we just have all these gadgets, all these things. But in like, so that's why we think we're the greatest country in the world. We have all these things, but like really, there's people who you see it, right? Like in Cuba, there were no homeless people. There was poverty. There was a lot of like needs, but there weren't homeless people. Here you see
None.
homeless people, but you see homeless people with jobs. You see homeless people not necessarily starving or not having food, but just not having like an ability to pay a place to live. And you see homeless people with cell phones because they have jobs or they have things to do, but they're homeless. So that just shows you like the difference between like in other countries, because in Russia there's not homeless people either. Like I think I've seen maybe like 3 in the entire time I've been here, and it's mostly usually people who are drunk or something. It's not actually like people who don't really have a home. So it's really crazy to me that we don't realize these things in the States.
And live from Rio, I'll tell Trump supporters in 2023 the same thing I told Bernie supporters in 2019. Did you substantively address the election system that cheated on your candidate and caused him to lose the first time? If the answer is no, then why would there be a different outcome than before?
To their credit, they tried and they were told they were a bunch of like liars, conspiracy theories, but also they went about it the wrong way, blaming China, Venezuela, and the ghost of Hugo Chavez. So there's that.
They did address it more than anybody else, but that's the thing. It's a lot of the people who are talking this stuff are not addressing that issue. It's unfortunate that still only a small percentage of the Trump people have stayed on this message and still trying to fight this stuff. Mark Fincham is. I'll be speaking to him later on today. They're just coming up with so much information, and I see a lot of also people who are involved now going, "Oh my God, they got so much proof against." In the Kerry Lakes, Katie Hobb things, they say that 70% of one analyst said that 70% of the signatures are on the mail-in ballots are not valid. I said, you know how many times we've had situations like that? It doesn't make a difference. You have to change the actual rules itself. You're not going to win on these, even if you have a smoking gun. It doesn't work like that when it comes to elections. I'm sorry. Go try to change the system itself, or listen to Fee and go around it. Don't even mess with it.
Yeah, I think it's time for that.
Let's get into
Do you
this
have a
next
video?
subject over here because this is just some crazy stuff, fam. This is what one of the reasons we started the Combo Couch was our love for foreign policy, our intrigueness of it, trying to understand it, getting more involved. We've got a chance to live a life now where we've gone to other countries. You're in Moscow. I just got back from Cuba. You were in Peru for those elections. We went to Nicaragua, Honduras, Colombia, Brazil. Just amazing things to see and witness. Not just the election system itself, but the actual people, the conditions, the socioeconomics, all those things. It's just another whole life experience. One of the things we talked about out of the gate was about what's going on in AFRICOM and how that I think when we first started the show right around that time, we had kind of did a story where we had mentioned that, Barack Obama got the drones to Africa. He brought the drones over there, and then Donald Trump armed the drones and started using them. And one of the things that Donald Trump did, but he's a little bit too late, and this is kind of something crazy, as he was exiting, he went to Colonel Douglas McGregor, and said, get the troops out of Afghanistan. It was a little bit too late. And nobody's ever held that against Donald Trump for that shit. He was the commander-in-chief for 4 years, and then he comes around and starts blaming Joe Biden for the way he pulled out. Okay. And that's something you can blame him for the way he pulled out. But guess what? They should have been out of there a long time ago if you were serious about ending that war. And you never were. And then at the very end, you were able to pull the small amount of special forces troops in Somalia. And when they landed in the United States, Joe Biden was the president. And he says, don't even get off. Get back on the plane and sent them right back over there. So we're going to talk about that because what's going on in Africa is crazy. And the thing about it is that wasn't really mentioned in this particular thing, and we'll talk about it when it comes to Burkina Faso, is that they have that particular coup plotter we had is actually throwing the West out now. So it's working against Western Empire's plans anyways. But this is something that I think Matt Gaetz is kind of alluding to, is why are we even there in the first place? Take a look at this. This is Matt Gaetz going after, and you'll love this, the commander's name, the African commander name, and I'm not saying African person, I'm saying in Africa, the command center, AFRICOM. His name is, I believe it's Colonel Langley, and he was trained probably in Langley. Take a look.
Jesus Christ.
General Langley, I have constituents that have been scattered across Africa on train and General Langley, I have constituents that have been scattered across Africa on train and equip missions. So just ballpark, in the last decade, how many Africans has the United States military trained and equipped?
Congressman, I don't have that figure. I can get that figure for you.
Ballpark, just, how many?
Congressman, it would be a wild guess, right?
Seems like something we should know, right?
Over the years, we have trained a substantial number, especially in the Gulf of Guinea states, but including
Like more than 10,000?
It is more than 10,000.
More than 50,000?
I'd say we're reaching around 50,000
Okay.
at least.
And what percentage of the people we've trained end up participating in insurrections or coups against their own government?
Very small number, Congressman. Very small number.
So what percentage do you think?
I'd say probably less than 1%.
But it does happen.
The IMET program is in force, and we've pushed a significant number through our schools across the.
Yeah, and what data sets do you track to arrive at the conclusion that less than 1% of the roughly 50,000 that we've trained have participated in coups? Because it'd be like about 500, about 1% of 50,000.
Congressman, you may have that information. I don't at this time, but I know.
Well, I know there's some, right? Like go ahead and throw up that image. This is Colonel Mamade Doumbouya, and this is a photo of him. Did we train and equip him in Guinea?
By name, I cannot identify that.
Well, that guy in the middle with the big red hat, Colonel Mamade Doumbouya, that's him with a bunch of U.S. service members outside of our embassy. And just months after this photo was taken in 2021, he led a coup in Guinea and threw out the leader. Does that concern you?
Congressman, core values is what we start off with in IMA programs.
Do we share core values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Core values. I will repeat that. Core values.
I know,
Respect for humanity.
Do we share those values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Absolutely. In our curriculum.
He led a coup.
We do.
Okay, well, that's a very telling answer. In Burkina Faso, did we share core values with the leader that we trained there who led a coup?
It's in our curriculum. We
Leading
stress
coups
core
are in our
values.
curriculum?
We request civilian-led governance.
Wait, hold on. Is leading coups in our curriculum?
Absolutely not.
So
civilian-led.
My question is, do we share core values with the coup leader in Burkina Faso who we trained?
Holistically, we teach core values with a respect for civilian governance, apolitical, and that's what sticks across a very high percentage in the 90 over 99 percentile.
Right? But not everybody. And I wonder how many people it takes to plan a coup. I mean, initially you didn't know how many we trained and equipped. Then you said it was 1%. You had no basis for that 1% number because there's no data set you track. Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. Another U.S. trained soldier stages a coup in West Africa by the Intercept.
Without objection, so ordered.
And I further seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. U.S. forces trained the Guinean colonel behind the recent coup in West African country, and this is regard to Guinea.
Without objection, so ordered.
So I guess the question is, why should U.S. taxpayers be paying to train people who then lead coups in Africa?
Congressman, our curriculum harvests core values and also to be able to embolden these countries for a representative democracy.
But General, that democracy isn't what emerges. The problem is, I know you may have great confidence in what you're teaching, but when two governments have been overthrown, I guess how many governments have to be overthrown by people we train before you sort of get the message that our core values might not be sticking with everyone? Is it 5 countries? 10?
We'll continue with our persistence in ensuring
But do you think it's
that
working?
they harbor democratic norms, democratic values.
Just a moment ago, you
apolitical.
said we shared core values with Colonel Doumbouya. You said that just moments ago in response to my question, and his core value seems to be leading a coup. So I don't think it's stuck. I think we should at least know how many countries we train the coup plotters in. How many is too many? Because clearly 2 is not too many, and I think we could use our resources far more effectively than doing this.
Fam, over here at the combo couch, what we preach more than anything, core values, fam. Core values of independent media, core values of working for the people, and core values for getting off our ass and going where we got to go. Sometimes things won't go through, but it's in our curriculum. Core values, fam.
It's the core values couch, everybody.
I wish my Stream Deck was working properly. I got to figure it out. But it is core values, and more big ups to the Matt Gaetz over here, fam. But the thing about it is that, and we'll get into this whole situation once eventually. We're going to get some information. I'm going to reach out to Ahmed, our friend, and see if he can come on and talk about Burkina Faso, because I believe that particular general who learned from the United States is throwing the United States out. You know what I'm saying? Taking back the national sovereignty. So it's kind of interesting because actually, in a way, it was like, hey, it worked for the people, but United States empire didn't count on that. Here's Matt Gaetz' new bill. He's introducing a bill, fam, to withdraw from Somalia. The War Powers Resolution would direct Joe Biden to pull out of the country within 365 days. So they still get a whole fucking year to pull out, and there's not a lot of troops there they can pull out tomorrow. On Tuesday, Representative Matt Gaetz introduced a War Powers Resolution that would direct President Biden to remove the armed forces from Somalia, that is sponsored by Representative Paul Gosar of Arizona and Ana Paulina Luna here in Florida, fam. The resolution would mandate the removal of all U.S. forces from Somalia with the exception of embassy security within 365 days of the bill being adopted. The resolution is privileged, meaning the House will have to vote on it within 18 legislative days. The introduction comes after Gaetz grilled General Michael Langley, the head of the African Command, AFRICOM, about the pattern of U.S. military training African coup leaders. The American people have extremely low confidence in our military leaders and the ability to assess their own efficacy. My bad. How do they expect Americans to believe their justification for occupying Somalia when they can't even determine who in their own training programs will lead to a violent coup afterwards, Gaetz said in a statement. Earlier this month, the House voted down a Syria War Powers resolution that was introduced by Gaetz when the House debated my resolution to withdraw troops from Syria. Both Republicans and Democrats argued the 2001 authorization use of military force, which they're going for. It's not our fault. He could do that anyways. Really doesn't need us. Against Afghans serves as a global permission slip for every neocon fantasy. They will argue the same for Somalia, Gaetz said. By the way, the 2001 AUMF, which passed in the wake of the September 11th attacks, only Barbara Lee voted against it for the invasion of Afghanistan, is used today to justify the U.S. war against al-Shabaab, a group that didn't exist when the authorization first became law. Isn't that funny, fam? Senator Rand Paul introduced an amendment in the Senate to repeal the AUMF, the 2001 AUMF, last week, but it failed, fam, at a vote of 9-86. That is fucking sad, and nobody's even talking about that right now. In other words, the president doesn't need the permission of Congress to go into any country and use military force, and you'd think that our supposed leftist anti-war peeps would vote against this fucking goddamn bill. They don't care, fam. They don't care about war. If they did, they would do something right there. The first thing they would do is take away the president's power to go and wage war at any time. I almost said rage war. Is it wage war? Wage and rage war at any time. And they don't care. It just goes by in the still of the night. Nobody's talking about that fucking, the fact that the AUMF that so many people have recognized for so long as a cancer within our society, just giving extreme powers to the executive branch to do whatever the fuck they want, and nobody's talking about it. Instead, we're talking about Trump and Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, I mean, that's by design, fam. And I'm actually, it's interesting seeing Gaetz be the one to push these amendments because he's really bad on other stuff. So it's interesting to see him push this. I wonder what's behind that. But at least he's doing something. And yeah, I mean, we can't expect the squad. They're not, they're intersectional imperialists. Remember, like they're imperialists. That's who they are. They're just as hawkish as the establishment Democrats and Republicans. They just slapped a progressive label in front of their name. They voted for pretty much every war for Ukraine. I think most of them, or if not, they've taken turns for money for Ukraine, and they also did for the, I think, something related to Taiwan as well. And yeah, I mean, it's not surprising, but it is funny seeing like a Republican voices being the ones like saying, hey, maybe we should, get our troops out of Syria. Hey, maybe we should, get our troops out of Somalia. You would think that the woman with ties to Somalians
would say something.
would say something, but
yeah,
we know this is why she's hated. She's not liked by the Somalian people at all, Ilhan. And yeah, so.
Well, I want to point something out. In my speech at Rage Against the War Machine, I did say something. I said, listen, I know you guys are going to say out there, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to say to me that, what are you talking about? Matt Gaetz is floating a bill to end the Ukraine war. And hey, that's great. Any bill to end war, that's great. Personally, I think everybody's a little bit late to the game over here. About 250,000 people killed at minimum counts across the board over there. But you know what? You're going to introduce a bill. Fine. That's good. Do something. But don't think for 1 second, Mr. Matt Gaetz, that we're going to allow you to end a proxy war with Moscow that has been funded through Kiev, and then take that money, those weapons, and send them over to Taiwan to start a war with Beijing. And that leads me to this next clip right here, which is really important because the co-author of the bill, right out here, Anna Paulina Luna, she is the co-author of the bill to end the war in Somalia, or just pull troops out of Somalia. And that's going to be looked upon as Joe Biden sending the troops to Somalia when Donald Trump pulled it back. Ukraine is looked upon as Biden's war. But when it comes to TikTok, when it comes to all that bullshit, and let me just say this much, the Restrict Act doesn't mention TikTok once in that bill. It doesn't mention China in that bill. It does mention China and Taiwan in it, but it doesn't mention TikTok once in the fucking bill. That bill is the Patriot Act of the internet. And that's what it is. It's going to take away all our rights. It's going to allow our government to spy on us on all the time and any device. It's an open door to complete technocratic fascism. So let me just say this much, though. Once again, Mrs. Paulina, thankful to the real Anna Paulina for co-sponsoring a resolution that would mandate all troops be withdrawn from Somalia. However, this isn't a good take down below here by trying to ban TikTok and blaming America's culture issues on the CCP. You're supposed to be the party of individual responsibility. And I'm getting a little bit tired of this whole, like, well, look what they're doing. Even Tucker fell into this whole bullshit. Where it's like, well, in China, this is what they play on TikTok. In America, this is what they play on TikTok, right? So this is all supposed to be that they're hypnotizing Americans. No, this is American culture that has sexualized our children. Yeah. Okay? This is American culture that is caught up on bullshit and reality TV and stupid videos. It's not the Chinese that did it to us. The algorithms are taking advantage of marketing advantages, right? A marketing ploy of sorts to sell more things to you, to keep you distracted. They don't want you necessarily going over and looking at these things. As long as they can keep you distracted, looking at nothing, and you're consumed with nothing, then they got you. So it's not about the Chinese doing it. Take a look at Anna Paulina. Once again, she co-sponsored the Somalia bill, and watch the language and the rhetoric towards, guess which country, fam?
China.
Luna, the Florida Republican Congresswoman, is among those who view it that way. Kind enough to join us now. Congresswoman, good to see you again. What do you make of this and where things are likely to go with TikTok now?
Well, exactly as you stated, and exactly as Representative Crenshaw stated, this has been a massive honeypot gathering operation. That's a term used in the intelligence community for when you basically trick someone into gathering information. And that's really what they've done. You know, if you have the app, if you're a parent and you have a child that has this app on their phone, understand that you are opening up all of your private information and data as well to this company and the CCP. So I have been a massive, massive advocate and voice in banning this altogether. And unfortunately, there will be a lot of people upset about this, but ultimately my goal and objective is the safety and security not only of America's children, but our country. And that's not going to continue if we have this app on people's phones.
All right. Now, a lot of kids who love this app, as you know, Congresswoman, say, well, American social media companies do the same thing with us. They track our browsing history, location, even biometric identifiers. I have no idea what that means, but that this is something that happens everywhere. The issue clearly here is it's very different when China does it. But how do you convince young people that if it goes the direction you and a lot of your colleagues want on both sides of the aisle, and this thing goes away, they're not going to be happy?
Well, unfortunately, when they get older, they are going to be faced with some very difficult decisions, sometimes for their own children and for their country. And they will have to decide, is this really about doing what feels good or what's the right thing to do? Ultimately, I want to remind these young people that the Communist Chinese Party would never allow for an American-owned app to show basically a Tide Pod eating challenge or twerking videos to the young people there. They are intentionally doing this not only as an effort to dumb down our youth, but they're also doing it because they don't want us to be pursuing things like the mathematics, science, and technology industries. And so this is something that they've done. It's a long-term goal of theirs.
Our youth don't want to pursue those things on their own because literally school and every single political debate and every single thing that they watch on the news teaches them that none of that matters. Education doesn't matter. That the only thing that matters is if you can go and become TikTok famous for dancing or for doing something completely stupid, and that's how you get famous. And like that's all you need in life is to be famous and an influencer for your physical attributes or whatever it is, and society elevates that. And literally everybody, both Republican and Democrat, elevate that as well. People in the political sphere elevate that. Hollywood elevates that. And so that's why Americans are that way, because that's just part of our culture. That's like, it's just so ridiculous. They're trying to blame China for that. Like, it's a completely different culture where people actually have a different way of thinking that's more collectivist. And we, because we value individuality so much in the United States, we don't think about that. We think more so about what I want to do, what I want to get. And that's just the way it is. And you can't, like, you complain about communist China, but our TikTok and stuff and our views, that's not like what a communist country would view. You know, you want to talk about China. There's a reason why China is rigid and their education system is rigid, with their media is rigid, because they don't want that to come into their country. That's why so many other countries that are more collectivist or socialist, whatever you want to call them, in their sphere are like that, because they don't want the US to propagandize them. The Soviet Union during the 60s and the 50s, young people here in Russia were so hungry to like listen to Elvis and dance and all of that. And what did the Soviet Union do? They were like, no, that's propaganda. I mean, were they right?
And all this shit is conjecture, and all the accusations are conjecture. It's, once again, it's kind of like they went over this whole thing, and she mentions Crenshaw. Crenshaw gets into a back and forth. We played this on the show, accusing that the Chinese have all hands in here. They can grab anything at any time. And the CEO goes, by the way, I'm Singaporean.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, how fucking stupid do you have to be? And they're trying to go, well, it's this one parent company, whatnot, but the data is stored in the Cayman Islands area. They're not, and it's stored in the United States. It's not stored in fucking China. And what's going to happen? Are we really? The party of individual responsibility wants no responsibility when it comes to their foreign policy. They always want to blame somebody else. And once again, thank you, Mrs. Paulina, for co-signing on a bill that will get these troops out of Somalia. That needs to happen. But the fact is that it just seems like you just don't like the particular enemy and you're okay with having another enemy. And that's what really bothers me more than anything. And you show signs of this all the time. So I don't want to hear it. I would like us to take some responsibility for our culture and how things are going over here instead of blaming somebody else. Because it's like, I mean, wow, the mental gymnastics that needs to take place for you to actually convince yourself and then to try to convince other people that our cultural issues that we are having here in the United States is a result of China. I mean, it goes beyond belief. But fam, don't worry about it. There is somebody in Congress who is actually going to protect communist speech. Can you guess who it is?
Yes,
Who?
I can. DeSantis, right?
No. Take a look at this one. You'll like this one. And this is a guy I normally like, Hallie, but he sucks on China and he needs this. This is crap.
We should target this threat specifically. That's what this bill does that we have before us today. It goes right at the problem. It bans TikTok in this country. It protects the American people. And it sends the message to communist China that you cannot buy us. And so I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs be discharged from further consideration of S-85 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. I further ask that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there an objection?
Madam President,
Senator from Kentucky.
reserving the right to object. There are two main reasons why we might not want to do this. The one would be the First Amendment to the Constitution. Speech is protected whether you like it or not. The second reason would be is that the Constitution actually prohibits bills of attainder. You're not allowed to have a specific bill against a person or a company. So this fails on two egregious points, pretty obvious points, and I think we ought to think about that. I think we should beware of those who peddle fear. I think we should beware of those who use fear to coax Americans to relinquish our liberties, to regulate and limit our First Amendment rights. Every accusation of data gathering that's been attributed to TikTok could also be attributed to domestic big tech companies. In fact, one of the bills they're looking at doing is broad enough that the president will be given the power to designate whatever country he sees fit to be an adversary and whatever company underneath that definition. It would basically be a limitless authority for the president to ban speech. If Republicans want to continuously lose elections for a generation, they should pass this bill to ban TikTok, a social media app used by 150 million people, primarily young Americans. This brilliant strategy comes while polls indicate that 71% of young women and men, 53% of young men voted for a Democrat candidate for Congress. Admittedly, many Democrats have joined Republicans in calling for this ban, but like most issues, the blame will stick to the Republicans more. The Republican strategy to ban TikTok comes simultaneously with GOP complaints of domestic social media companies canceling and censoring conservatives. Without a hint of irony, many of these same conservatives now rail against censorship while advocating for censorship against social media apps they worry are influenced by the Chinese. Before banning TikTok, these censors might want to discover that China already bans TikTok. Do we really want to emulate Chinese speech bans? Aren't we the ones that say it's wrong for China to ban speech, so we're going to be just like China and ban speech we're afraid of? The vice president of FreedomWorks, John Tamney, perhaps described this situation best. Nauseating harassment of TikTok presumes Americans will be saved from Chinese authoritarianism if U.S. politicians act like Chinese authoritarians. We're going to be saved from speech if we ban it in our country. My goodness, could we think of anything more antithetical to the freedom of speech? Well, go to the app. They say, oh, the app's full of propaganda and your young people will be dancing into communism. Well, go to the app and search for Falun Gong, the anti-communist religious sect that is persecuted in China. Go to TikTok and search for videos advocating Taiwan's independence, criticism of Chinese President Xi Jinping. Videos are all over TikTok that are critical of official Chinese positions. That's why TikTok is banned in China. Do we want to follow China's lead in banning speech? We should not let fear of communism to cause us to ignore our First Amendment protections of speech. This legislation violates not only the First Amendment of those who own TikTok, many of whom are actually Americans, not Chinese, but it also violates the First Amendment rights of the millions of young Americans who use this social media app. I ask the American people, do you want Joe Biden to be your censor? Do you want to give unlimited power to any president, regardless of party, to decide who is our adversary and which countries, and then which countries? There's not even a list of what percentage. What if the Chinese own 1% of a company or 10% of a company? One of the bills before us would allow the Department of Commerce to decide. There's 5 countries they list that are adversaries. These are big countries that have a lot of interactions with our country already. Decide which country, in addition to the 5. The Department of Commerce can designate a country as an adversary, but then they can designate a company. But there's no specific. Do the new people that are designated to be an adversary have to own 100% of the company, 50% of the company, 1% of the company? This is a crazy gift of power to one person. And I don't care which party they're in, it's a huge mistake.
I had another clip where he's talked about, like, and once again, you can obviously see that, he's wrote a book, The Case Against Socialism. He wrote a book. Yeah. He's anti-China, but he even said in this one part, he goes, of course we're going to protect communist speech because we have to protect all speech. The nuance is that you shouldn't be driven by fear, and you shouldn't be giving away ultimate power to one individual to allow them to decide what is fair freedom of speech, what is true, what is not true. That is for up to the citizens to decide, not the government. And he even talked about that one thing. I should find that clip. He goes, I am going to protect communist speech here, even though I am dead set against communism. There's nuance here, ladies and gentlemen. There's fucking nuance. Sorry.
So China, again, the same reason Russia doesn't allow certain apps here, it's because their media and all of their stuff is banned in the West. You don't get to see it. But so why would they allow the U.S. propaganda to pour into their country? That's exactly what the U.S. has tried to use to overthrow countries. And so China is extremely careful, as I mentioned, about what they let in. So it doesn't make any sense to me. So China's guilty for an app that is full of criticism of its government. It's just so dumb. He was right about everything up until he started on his anti-China bullshit. He had to go there, but other than that, he was right. But yeah,
he gets that way about that shit all the time too, as well. Yeah. Even Thomas Massey, who I like, will kind of make those little stupid statements. It's not necessary. It's whatever, dude. I get what you're saying. By the way, if you guys are over on Rumble, that's cool. You'll see Vicky Lynn hanging out in the chat with a whale there. You could subscribe to the channel for a couple bucks, and it helps us out. And of course, you can leave a super Rumble. I don't know what they call it there. If you're in any position whatsoever to help the Combo Couch out, please go over there and do so. And today we are on Rockfin, not as premium, but as free. We can see some people who normally don't hang out are hanging out. If you can afford to help on out over there, you can get a membership for $14.99 a month, and that will help us out. And you get everybody's premium content across the board for free. We are still waiting for Rockfin to adapt the members only to a specific channel for a certain price. And once that happens, we will do so. And you can go help us out at over at the Rockfin. But right now, it's open to everybody and anyone. And of course, there are Super Ray contributions, just like the two we have over here. First one from Amber King said, "We are still waiting for you. We are still waiting for you to join us and stream on VK Fiorella XOXO Roar Fam." I don't know what happened. Did something happen over there? Did you guys get suspended from YouTube again? Somebody was saying something earlier. I don't know. But that was from whatchamacallit. Fam, can you do me a favor? Can you read this one right here? I will put it up. Bloop, bloop.
Citizens have no...
This one, sorry.
Oh, okay. So Dominic Palela tipped $2. Common Couch always does a good job educating their audience about the corruption in our government. All the political problems they describe are due to one thing. Our citizens have no voice in government decisions after elections. If you'd like to learn how to have a political power after elections instead of being a submissive subject of your lawmakers, visit constituentpolling.org. Okay. Well, thank you.
We're media
And
90 days.
yes, pasta for 90 days.
War Media got suspended for 90 fucking days. Jesus
What?
Christ.
Really?
Jesus, man.
What the hell?
Fam,
awful.
let's get into this next one because I got a Spanish lesson.
For
I gotta
what?
go to.
Yeah, so we'll be quick with this. So guys, so everybody, I had like, I don't know how many text messages of people freaking out because the State Department issued like their 5th bulletin saying American citizens in Russia need to go home immediately. Everyone's like, Fiorella, what's going on? You should go home. Oh my God. Blah, blah, blah.
Stupid.
And I'm like, this is like the 5th, 6th time that this has happened, first of all. Second of all, why is this happening? So the Wall Street Journal had one of their journalists arrested. One of their journalists was detained by the Russians, the Russian government, for suspicion of espionage. Okay, and you know we always refer to hold on, fam. We always refer to the mainstream media as State Department hacks. Basically, they just regurgitate. And that's the truth. So this is not coming out of nowhere. So the Wall Street Journal right now, so far, is demanding retaliation after their journalist was arrested in Russia, and expulsion from the U.S. of all Russian journalists and the country's envoy is the minimum to expect amid espionage case. So the Wall Street Journal wants to completely get rid of any sort of Russian journalists in Russia. And so the arrest of the Wall Street Journal correspondent in Russia on espionage charges amounts to taking him hostage. The U.S. newspaper has claimed it has also accused President Joe Biden's administration of showing weakness in the face of the detention and has demanded tough action. Evan Gershkovich was snatched in the Russian city of Ekaterinburg, and the notorious Federal Security Bureau, the newspaper said on Thursday in an editorial piece. So they mean the FSB, the Russian law enforcement agency. And on Thursday, the agency reported detaining Gershkovich as he was allegedly trying to obtain classified information about a defense plant located in the Russian Urals. The FSB claimed he was working for the U.S. government and is suspected of espionage, a crime punishable by up to 20 years of jail under Russian law. And he was reporting on a trip and denied the espionage allegation as dubious on its face. The FSB could have expelled him long ago if it really believed he is a spy. The incident looks like a calculated provocation to embarrass the U.S. and intimidate foreign press still working in Russia. So, so the Wall Street Journal said that Gershkovich is innocent, and this was a response to charges that the U.S. Department of Justice brought earlier against Sergei Cherkasov, who had been charged as a possible Russian spy by the Netherlands. And they claimed that the Kremlin had a habit of taking Americans hostage and implied that Moscow could use Gershkovich for a prisoner swap. And so they want the Biden administration to respond. But Dmitry Peskov, who's the Kremlin spokesperson, said, absurd and wrong, the idea of kicking Russian journalists out of the U.S. He reiterated that Gershkovich had been caught red-handed violating Russian secrecy laws. So let me just tell you guys something about being a journalist. And even being a journalist here and having all the credentials I have, and journalists that go to the Donbass, like, all the time, you still have to go through a rigorous process where they have to know where you're going, what you're going through, why, because this is wartime. And especially if you're going to the Donbass or the area of war, they really make sure you are who you are, like that you are there for legitimate reasons, that you're not just there to pretty much come in and try to do something, especially after the attacks on journalist also Daria Dugina, who was killed, and other attacks that have happened on even American journalists and foreign journalists who have an anti-Ukraine, an anti-US State Department, whatever, not biases is not the word, but in a lens, who are really in Donbass to report what's actually happening, and they have been targeted by Ukraine, right? So I wasn't allowed to take my American phone. It's this whole thing. So I find it weird that people are surprised that if the Russians, and I say this like with reality, like if the Russians think that somebody's a spy and they're saying that they were caught red-handed, I have a hard time thinking that they don't have the evidence to back it up, and that we'll be seeing some of that evidence soon. This is the Wall Street Journal. This is not, an independent media outlet. This is, and you saw all of the establishment, right? Raising the alarm, freaking out. When did they do this for Julian Assange? When? Did
Never.
they act like that
Never.
when this happened to Julian Assange? So I just find it very suspect. All of a sudden, one of their hacks or their State Department folks. By the way, if you go through to this guy's profile or his friend's profile, you'll quickly get a picture as to how their reporting is. State Department talking points, bullet by bullet. Okay. So I just have to reiterate that from the start. But I have a little bit of information from my colleague Donald Porter here and his tweet. He has this thread. So he said, around the beginning of Russia's special military operation in Ukraine, the collective West began accusing Moscow of banning independent media outlets. Of course, what they really meant was that the Russians were banning their media outlets. Various Western state-funded media outlets like the BBC, Deutsche Welle, and the Voice of America were no longer allowed to spread pro-Ukrainian neo-fascist propaganda to the people of Russia. What a tragedy. However, for years, they were free to stew pretty much whatever propaganda they wanted in a country that, according to the mainstream Western narrative, has no freedom and is run by an authoritarian dictator. So this just happened when there was the special military operation, to clarify. So let's not forget a critical moment that the West's narrative often so conveniently omits. The Russian government only made the decision to close down these channels after its own outlets, RT and Sputnik, were forbidden from broadcasting in the West. And I just want to reiterate that point, guys. You cannot see me even when I tweet stuff if you don't have a VPN, because it's not allowed in the European Union. I have to post a video or send you a link to my Telegram. Why the hell would Russia allow the propaganda coming in if their outlets aren't allowed to be seen by you and you only get to see one narrative? I just don't understand why why they would do that. I think that's dumb, because it's not just a regular time. This is like a different time. And he said, at any rate, this post is not just about Western hypocrisy in connection to the media. It's about the West's frequent use of what it calls independent journalism as a tool of espionage. On March 30th, a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, for whom the Russian Foreign Ministry was even nice enough to retain his journalistic accreditation, was arrested by the FSB on suspicion of spying. So the Russian Foreign Ministry gave him accreditation. Okay, just so you guys know, two different departments here. The Russian Foreign Ministry gave him the accreditation. The FSB is the one who arrested him on the suspicion of spying in the interest of the U.S. government. He was caught trying to obtain classified information about Russia's defense industry and can face up to between 10 and 20 years in Siberian prison. It's very cold. Hats off to you, Evan Gorskovich, for showing the world what it really means to be a true American independent journalist. So it's interesting how they highlight. We've seen Samantha Power highlight this. We've seen a lot of these hacks. We support independent journalism. Literally, we get throttled, we get censored, we get labeled, actual independent journalists are never, ever, ever promoted by the establishment. You are literally silenced, you're vilified, you're smeared, you're called a Russian propagandist, you're called whatever the hell you're called. Because I was called a Russian bot before I even lived here and worked for RT. So don't tell me that it's just, no. Like,
we had
I've been
I Love
called a
Putin
Russian bot
shirts out
for
before.
fucking years.
Yeah. We had I Love Putin shirts out before even the war and any of that stuff, you know what I'm saying? And mostly to mock what was going on, the way people were trying to make Putin out to be Thanos and all this shit. And big ups to people in the chat. What's up, Morgan? It's great to see you. It's very cold. Epic.
Gamer for life.
Are you going to do your my Anthony Blinken? We are deeply concerned over Russia's announcement that it detained U.S. citizen journalists. The State Department's highest priority is safety and security of the U.S. citizens abroad. If you are a U.S. citizen living or traveling in Russia, please leave immediately. I will work on my Blinken, but yeah, that's how you do it.
I'm not going to leave, Tony. I'm not leaving. Leave me alone, Tony. Jeez.
Anthony. Fam, we got a little clip here. Can we play this sucker?
Yeah, we can play this sucker just so you guys just so you guys see a little bit more about this.
Washington has warned all Americans in Russia to immediately leave the country. That's after Russia's Federal Security Services arrested a Wall Street Journal correspondent on charges that he was spying for the U.S. government.
U.S. citizens residing or traveling in Russia should depart right away.
Any U.S. citizen residing or traveling in Russia should depart immediately.
U.S. citizens residing or traveling in Russia should depart immediately.
The spokeswoman for Russia's foreign ministry has taken issue at those warnings from Washington. She says they should be targeted only at Americans in Russia who have engaged in espionage. A Russian court has decided to keep the Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich behind bars for 2 months while an investigation is conducted. He has been accused of using his cover as a correspondent to attempt to obtain classified information about the Russian defense industry. Gershkovich faces up to 2 decades in prison. We heard from analyst Wyatt Reed, who says this is not the first case of a journalist serving as a spy.
There is a long tradition of spies using journalistic cover to infiltrate countries who their governments may be targeting. We know that there was actually a secret loophole that allowed the agency to use journalists under what it called extraordinary circumstances if it had the specific approval of the CIA director. It is, of course, very curious for the United States to make any of these kinds of allegations at all in terms of, or any kind of comparisons or suggestions that this arrest is politically motivated. Really, this kind of moment that we're in terms of press freedom, it boils down to one journalist in particular, and that's WikiLeaks editor Julian Assange.
Western media outlets have expressed support for the journalist and emphasized their concerns for his safety. At the Wall Street Journal, Gershkovich covered a variety of Russia-related topics, including the recent visit by Chinese leader Xi Jinping to Moscow. Reports say that prior to his arrest, he was pursuing a story about the Russian private military group Wagner. Finnish journalist Janis Putkinen says Russia needs to be more cautious about foreign journalists amid the ongoing Ukraine conflict.
Russia has all the reasons to be very careful, very suspicious, but in the end, this is all about averting all kinds of misunderstandings. What we need is a transparency for these so-called journalists who are operating in the Russian soil, or those trying to limit at least the work of the propagandists. This is a very complicated matter, and when the FSB have to come in, like when in Donbass, when the local authorities have to come in and intervene journalist jobs, then it's already a bridge too far. Hopefully, and in the future, all these kind of events can be prevented with full and understandable control and cooperation.
Washington.
Fam, it's so crazy that this happened too as well, because we were literally leaving Cuba, and we were talking about this one situation where the spy it was a journalist for years and years and years, and eventually they caught him. He was a full-blown spy. I can't remember who he was talking about, but we were talking about it, and then to see Wyatt on there doing that, that's pretty trippy. They were literally in the Cuban airport leaving, talking about that, fam. Literally talking about it. And not about this story, about somebody historically that had done it and gotten away and went for years, and they found that it was a full-blown spy. Yeah, just crazy that we were doing that.
Yeah, and it just really irritates me because, like, for me and my experience, and I'm sure Wyatt's and yours, the only people who have gone after independent journalism is our own country. It's our own government via Google, via YouTube, via censorship, via everything. And so for me, it's like enraging to see them go up in arms when one journalist is detained. Like, if a journalist was detained, in general by Russians all the time. I have not seen Russians detain journalists. We have journalists from CNN here before. We've had, I know this because a lot of my friends and colleagues are always in the Donbass, and they're like, oh yeah, CNN journalists, this other journalist. So this doesn't happen. Russia won't just like detain these journalists. It's like there's a certain protocol that everybody goes through to be given accreditation to go into the war conflict zone. It's not just, you can't just go there, obviously, because it's dangerous. And some people feel like, as Janice felt, that they're not being cautious enough. Some people feel like they're overly cautious, but I don't think you can be too overly cautious right now. We know the CIA has done this before, as Wyatt mentioned many times. This has been done multiple times. So I don't know if he's guilty or not. But what I do know is that if Russia thinks he is, it's for a reason. I have a hard time thinking they're just gonna detain him for political reasons. They don't really have a need to do that. And the outlet he works for is really suspect. And I went through their Twitter pages, and it's also really suspect. So yeah. So again, Julian Assange was mentioned by Wyatt. Thank you. And he's still in prison, guys. He's still in prison. None of these people said a word about Julian Assange. Fam, they're using the hashtag journalism is not a crime. This is what irritates. They're using this hashtag. Journalism is not a crime. And it's fine, because I know the Assange community will use this to their advantage and say, this is the Assange effect, and that we need to advocate for press freedoms all around, whether it's Russia, the United States, whatever. Yeah. But this is like, for me, it's like, they're saying this stuff and they've never cared about press freedom. They've never once cared about actual independent journalists. It's just, to me, like, we are all censored, vilified, smeared. We're throttled out. We're told we're working for the Kremlin, even when we're not. And like, it's ridiculous. Even people like Tucker Carlson are told that they work for Putin. It's absolutely ridiculous. So for me to see all of this play out, like, is just really, really angered me, because so many people were like, are you okay? Are you coming home? I'm like, no, this is what you did to a journalist. Cause this is from Kavork. This is what they did. He's still there. And it's going to be the anniversary of his 4 years in Belmarsh. And so for me, it's, we have Edward Snowden here in Russia as a whistleblower, really, who persecutes journalists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's crazy. If they really want to prove them wrong right now, RT should send me out there to Moscow, because they're saying all the journalists should leave and all that bullshit. They should send me there right now. I'll come into the studio and say, everything's cool and fine, guys. Later, peace. Boom. Be a good way to burn their ass. Fam, Marlene Smith, I know I've been MIA for quite a bit, but I'm still watching and keeping up. So proud of the both of you, and especially glad you guys are still dropping all the damn truth. That's why we get censored, Marlene, on a regular basis. And welcome back. Together on the Convo Couch. Questions over cluster. Questions. P.S. Assange should be free. Hashtag free Julian Assange. Ahora. Now, fam. So let's free him. Free Julian Assange. And thank you guys so much. Thank you for everybody who watched on the Rockfin today. The non-premiums were able to jump on in for a change. Watch a live stream. Of course, we'll have this clipped up and you can share. Listen, we do the live streams on Rockfin at the premium price and the premium subscription, but we put all the clips up there after. So you might not be able to watch the live stream for free on Rockfin, but it will all be up in clipped form, so you can take that there and share it out. We also put the clips over on Rumble. And of course, on Rumble, we're always streaming it for free. We can always stream the whole show there, because they won't ding us and dong us when it comes to elections and COVID, unlike our friends at the YouTubes. Fam, what else you got? You got anything going on this weekend?
No.
I got a vampire-themed wedding tomorrow for my cousins. How about that, fam?
What? That's really cool. Can I see pictures? I love vampires.
I know you love vampires, fam, and if you were here, I would take you. My cousins would love you. They are having a vampire-themed wedding tomorrow. It's a little crazy, but I love it. And
Fam, did you know Russians are vampires?
everybody, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Tomorrow will be Steve's birthday. If you want to go on over, thank Steve, and go on to any of our shows.
Happy birthday to Steve.
Love. We had a lot of love there today for Steve's birthday, and you're more than welcome to go do that because we can always use the help. We use the help across the board. All the links to help the combo couch are in the description down below. We do have a Patreon, and we want to thank everybody who jumps on that and throws that money in there. Remember, we are powered by individuals like yourself. We have to do double duty when a lot of people who, aren't even half as good as us and are shit because they repeat the state narratives, they get paid left and right. It's not advantageous, ladies and gentlemen, to be a non-team sports player, and that's what we are. We always speak our truth, and we try to bring the truth to you. An amazing experience in Cuba. Hopefully we'll get back there in May. There are a lot of other things there on the docket for this year. We definitely have Argentina towards the end of the year, and who knows where we'll go before that. I myself would like to go to Guatemala, fam. What they're doing over there in Guatemala, they're doing almost something that's kind of crazy. When you leave people off the ballots, that's another form of election rigging, okay? That's another form of election fraud. So that is what's going on in Guatemala. They're not giving specific reasons why. They're kind of vague. I want to get to the bottom of it, but they are leaving the indigenous candidates that one of them in particular had a great showing last time, and they can cause a lot of problems and possibly win this election. So they don't want that to happen. So what are they doing? They're leaving that person off the ballot. That is what the empire does. We have a lot of minions and proxies within the Guatemalan government. We've always fucked around with that government. We had a coup and took back the bananas that were nationalized by the government previous. And that was one of our coups back in the days in the 50s. So Guatemala is one of those places we want to make sure that our money system, our monetary system is in play and its austerity measures on the people. But we want that natural resource. We want those bananas from them because then we can sell it. And one individual's that used to be the UFC, the United Fruit Company, which are now Dole and Chiquita, they profit and the people suffer. So we want to see what's going on over there. So that might be something to look into in the future. But whatever we do, we will do it at the behest of you guys and you guys only, not the corporate sponsors. So thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts. My birthday is in 2 weeks. I will be the big 5-0. So we'll do something special there as well. Fam.
Damn, really?
Fam, I'm going to put together, yes. Don't stop.
Damn.
Fam. Don't say damn and all surprised because I'm 50 years old. Sheesh.
That's crazy.
I'm an old man, but my spirit is young.
Wow, I've known you for a while. No, because when I met you, you were younger. Yeah.
I heard that Andrew Tate's getting released. We begin.
Oh yeah, free Andrew Tate, free Top Dog. Ooh.
Yeah. Anyways, fam, I'm gonna put together a couple panels because a lot of people have been asking. We haven't had a panel in a while, and you haven't done a panel in a while. So let's get something together. I'm going to be in Tennessee in early June. I believe it's June 3rd and 4th. I will check the dates. In fact, let me just grab it really quickly. Fam, there is a True the Community sponsored by and put together and organized by Scott Armstrong of Rebunked, friend of the show, works for T-Lab. Same with Courtney. That they also collaborate with T-Lab in Tennessee. So we're going to go out there and have a little fun little event. Let me pull it on up really quick. Hold on. I am so sorry. See, never mind. It's making me log in, but I'll have it up. It's called Rebels with a Cause. We're going to do an event out there, and there are a couple people. I forgot his name. Dude works at InfoWars. He did a lot of reporting with Matthew Turman on his show about Brazil, and there's a couple Brazil guys out there that got the election wrong, and I'm going to be meeting up with them. I wonder how that's going to be because I'm going to be like, hey guys, let's talk about Brazil from an actual person who went to Brazil for the election.
Oh, what do you know? People who go.
I think his name is Owen something. I can't. But I'm going to do it in a nice way and have a nice conversation. So
Of course you are, because you're
I'm going to be
far
cool about
nicer
the
than I
event.
would
I
be.
love the event. I love what Scott's doing. Jay Dyer will be there. Mel K will be speaking. Courtney Scott, T-Lab, of course. So it's going to be a great time. We'll be promoting that too as well. Steve is going out there with me. We'll be speaking at this event. I think it's awesome that I get the opportunity to be the token leftist, anti-imperialist leftist that gets in the room, that gets to talk about the election, that get to see over in these other places and talk about the culture. I'm really glad they've allowed me to do that. These guys are more anarchist-based, if you know what I mean. They don't like any government whatsoever.
Yeah.
Great followings, Sam, some of these people. These guys are always awesome. Ryan Christian, I can't talk about the work enough.
I like Ryan. I
amazing.
do. I think he's great. But
yes. So that will be going on. Grandpa Pasta. Look what he puts in it. Look what he puts.
Pasta doesn't need Viagra.
Thank
from
you.
all the women that I've known him to.
Nashville. Pam's got my back. We were in Columbus. Pam's like, get out, get over here. I'm like, I got it.
Unfortunately, I mean, my eardrums have, heard too many things, guys. So anyway, this is getting a little Friday night. So I gotta go. Actually,
my real love was in where, fam? In Honduras.
Oh yeah. Are you really saying that out loud? Wow, he said it out loud. I did say that.
Well, I don't want to say, but it's great when you meet somebody. It's great when you meet somebody in like the business and doing the same thing you're doing. So yeah, it's awesome. Nobody knows. Fam, that's it for today. When are you going to be back on the Artizzle desk?
Monday, so I'll be there.
So you have the weekend off. We both got the weekends off. Let's have fun time. Thank you so much for everybody. You know where you can help us out. We do have a Patreon if you want to jump on over there. Or if you want to just subscribe to The Rock and you want to leave it to love. All the tips from today are going into the tip jar that we will be getting in a couple days. It's the last day of the month. Tomorrow is April 1st. And happy birthday to everybody out there. Steve Poikinen, Leo, all my good friends out there. We love you. Camilla's an Aries. I'm an Aries, fam. Aries rule. So just so you know, that's it for today for Pasta Jardula.
Fiorella. Combo out. I always